This year we're starting the first of a 4-year trial program, releasing orange-bellied parrots on the mainland into the habitat they would normally occupy during autumn and winter. Orange-bellied parrots are one of the most critically endangered animals in Australia. There's fewer than 50 birds left in the wild. This last breeding season, they had only 17 birds return to the only known breeding location, and only 4 of those were female, which is really concerning because that's very close to extinction in the wild. So what we're doing today is part of a broader program aiming to try and improve the situation for this species. Recovery for the orange-bellied parrot is going to need us to do 2 things across the recovery program really well. One is that the population's so small, we have to release captive birds to the wild to grow the population as quickly as we can. Now we have ways of doing that with releasing birds in spring in Tasmania, and we do get some success from that. But across the recovery program, we're looking for ways to get better at releasing birds into the wild. The more effective we get at that, the faster we can grow the population. The other thing that we really need to achieve is improved survival over migration and winter. Particularly in the last few years, survival during that period has been quite low, in particular for young birds and those birds that we've released in the spring. So basically birds that are naive and have not experienced the winter range are not surviving well during migration and over the winter period. And we really need to find a way to improve survival during that time to make a difference to this species.
It's been a quite involved process over the last few weeks, getting us to this point where we're about to release them. A lot of work has gone on behind the scenes, selecting birds for release to prepare them in captivity to make sure that they're healthy and fit to be released, and also to build these aviaries on site where the birds are able to develop really strong site fidelity prior to release. Some of the birds have come from Moonlit Sanctuary, and the other birds have come from Hillsville Sanctuary. They were bred in captivity there. There's another male that's actually in the mix that was collected from the wild in Tasmania and flown over here to try and get them to migrate better.
This is just one of multiple strategies that the recovery team are looking at the moment to try and identify how best to introduce birds back into the wild from the captive population. So birds can be introduced anywhere from, of course, the egg stage or juveniles, mainland releases or releases at the breeding site. All of these may be important, but what we're trying to do is get a better understanding of how effective each of these different options can be.
Today we've released the first birds in this trial at the Western Treatment Plant in Werribee. We've chosen this site because it's the most reliable site in Victoria now for orange-bellied parrots to come to naturally during the winter. So for the last few years there's been 3 individual birds that have come and spent their winter here.
I normally come here to look for the wild birds when they arrive on the mainland. I get a real buzz when I do find the birds again for the first time each winter. They've got remarkable endurance. The fact that they can twice a year fly from Tasmania to the mainland and from the mainland back to Tasmania again shows huge feats of endurance. They're quite tough little birds, and I don't really know how much longer they're going to be able to do that in terms of a wild population, but every time they come back each year it's just a real thrill.
I'm hoping that these birds that we've released today will stick around this area for the winter because we know it's a good site for the species, and that they'll learn about winter habitat, what they're supposed to eat, where they're supposed to sleep or hide from predators. I'm hoping that the birds we've released connect up with the wild birds we expect to turn up here any day now. That will help that learning process for them if that happens, because those wild birds have been here for a few winters already. They know what to eat, where to go, where to hide, so they can pass that on. This is a social species, so they'll probably, if they find each other, we hope, form a flock, and that they survive and have a good shot at making a migration back to Tasmania for the summer. It's been a really inspiring process to be a part of because we've had so much work to do and there's so many partners involved. I think at the core of it, everybody understands the urgency of this work and has been really committed to making sure that it can happen. For a species so close to extinction in the wild, it's worth us making our best effort to see if we can make a difference for it.
It needs immediate action, it needs help. To me, it's not acceptable to allow a species to go extinct. I think we need to do all we can to try and save it.
I think it really is one of Australia's most, if not the most critically endangered species. It really feels like there is a degree of responsibility on the people that are managing it now. So it's been really a privilege, I guess, to be involved in a project where hopefully we're going to get some information that can help with that overall recovery effort.
Authorised by the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, 8 Nicholson Street, East Melbourne.